What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel, your go-to place for all things Lions related. That includes news, updates, analysis, and so much more. Today, we are going to be finally recapping the Lions win over the Green Bay Packers this past Thursday night. The Detroit Lions beat the Packers 34-31 on a last-second kick from Jake Bates, his third game winner of the season. This game had everything in it. It had obviously high stakes on the line in terms of, again, the Lions being able to keep a strong lead in the NFC North, but even more so being able to keep that strong lead in the NFC race for the number one seed. The Lions getting this win over a very good and talented Green Bay Packers team was very much needed. And Morgan, before we get into talking about this game and some of the controversy surrounding it, there is one thing I wanted to get out of the way. So normally Morgan and I do a scout the opponent video. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that up before this game. So again, to our viewers, we apologize for that. Sorry. We had some technical difficulties, but we are going to make it up to you guys because Morgan and I were talking about this. And a shout out to, I think it's JC over on Twitter, who actually asked if we could break down the fourth down plays from Thursday night. So Morgan and I are going to get together, get those plays together, and kind of break them all down and talk about like why they were all, successful. And for the one that wasn't successful, what went wrong on that play going forward. And also kind of probably even talking about Dan Campbell's mindset when it comes down to some of these fourth down calls. So that's going to be our way of making it up to you guys with the Lions having 10 days off before their next game. We'll have a lot of time to basically go through content and make some more additional content for you guys. But Morgan, going back to the game, like we said, a little bit of controversy obviously surrounding it. Packers fans obviously are not happy with the fact that there was an offensive pass interference play call near the end of the game when Green Bay would have got a go-ahead touchdown that would have put them up, I believe by like 6 or 7, something like that. I think it would have been 6. And so obviously that gets called on Christian Watson for a pick play. Packers fans aren't happy. Lions get the ball. They're able to basically march down the field and get the game-winning field goal in that situation. Let's start there. Overall thoughts on the call.
Sorry about that, guys. My cats had a little something to say. You might see a couple tails in the background here. Apparently, they want to talk about how Packers fans need to shut up too. So, but no, man. Listen, OPI, they're gonna call that, right? Like we talked about it before we jumped on. Like really, if you're not making a concerted effort, like you have that 1 yard buffer zone, right, Miko? Like where you can make that contact.
Yep.
Beyond that, the line judge is right there. And I think it's Watson, or is it Wicks that gets called for it? Watson. And he like jumps into Kirby. Like he leaves his feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
That even makes it more blatant. And to those people who are saying the flag was late, I used to think this too back in the day, and then started hanging out with some of my friends who coach and then like help them out a little bit. And you talk to these referees who, ref here in Detroit and then also at the Big Ten level in some MAC games. And they say a lot of the times people think flags are late because the way they're instructed is to, if they see a flag, they're going to put their hand on the flag, but they continue to key in on what they're supposed to be looking at. Just like football players, they have their keys that they're watching depending on what, where they're at as a team, like within the referee unit. Mm-hmm. And then they throw the flag afterwards. So if sometimes the flag appears late, at times it can be because of that. But yeah, I don't want to hear it from Packers fans, man. We've had so many, like the hands to the face game. That was the whole internet was in an uproar. Like you had people who were not affiliated with Detroit or like Lions fans or anything, like saying, dang, the Lions got robbed. Players, you name it, ex-players. This was just a few stupid Packers writers, man. Peter Bukowski, maybe the most, I don't know if he's engagement farming or if he's just that detached from reality. Either way, it's scary. That man is unhinged. He's been unhinged since the end of the game. The team's just not good enough, man. Like we talked about it, Miko. They had their chances, bro. Like they were playing, like the Lions, at one point, the defensive line was Al-Quadin Muhammad, Miles Adams, Pat O'Connor, shout out True EMU, and Zadarius Smith. Like that's it. Like it was decimated. You had Ezekiel Turner out there playing meaningful reps and making some plays. Shout out Zeke Turner.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to hear it, man. Y'all weren't good enough. You're not good enough this year. You weren't good enough last year. You weren't good enough at the end of 2022. You should be getting used to it by now. I don't know what to tell you.
And that's the thing, man, right? Like when it comes down to these types of things, like I understand, like as Lions fans, we understand the gripes of like not, or feeling like you're not getting a call, right? And whether a call should have been called or a call wasn't called, like we know that feeling better than anyone. And to your point, Morgan, like I don't want to hear it from Packers fans of all people, because there are so many instances where we've been on the short end of phantom calls, right? You bring up the hands to the face game in 2019, 2015, the face mask that never happened. Like, those plays directly impacted how the game ended. You had opportunities to be better in this game. The fact, like, that offensive pass interference has nothing to do with you being down 7-17 in the first half, right? That's your offense that wasn't able to actually put together any plays. Jordan Love goes 3 for 7. You're averaging 3 yards through the air. The only reason that you're kind of in that game is kind of because of short fields. Morgan brings up the fact that we had this makeshift defensive line in the second half. There's an argument to be made that if Aleem doesn't go out at halftime with a concussion, that maybe you're not able to get back into that game at all, because we were doing enough. Like, there were enough pieces there between Aleem and Zadarius Smith and the rest of that defense that were making life very difficult. There's a reason why Jaden Reed had no catches for no yards. Like, there are so many opportunities for you to have just been better, and you started to put up a fight in the second half. But again, a lot of that goes back to the Lions, like, giving you a short field. They go for it on a 4th down on their side of the field. Great. You're right there already in scoring range. Jared Goff throws a very bad pick that almost turns into a pick 6, gives you another short field. Outside of that, you should be looking at your offense being like, hey, why weren't you able to march up and down the field on this defense? One play should not be the deciding factor of that. It's not the fault of the referees that your defense wasn't able to, like, get enough stops. It's not the ref's fault that you go, what is it, like 2 for 15 on 3rd down? Like, that's a you problem. Your team's not executing. And so, yeah, I don't really want to hear it from Packers fans. Peter Bukowski having the nerve to say early on in this game, you could tell the fix was in. No, early off in the game, you could tell that you guys just couldn't hang. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, it's just detachment. Like, you think about it, right? At the end of the day, bro, like, the penalties, it was 7 on each team, 59 for the Packers, 56 for the Lions. And there was a couple that were backbreakers for the Lions. You had the hold on Frank Ragnow, where that was a drive killer. There was a couple, like the PI against Terrion in the end zone that Amik intercepted. That could have gone either way, because they're both kind of sitting there hand fighting, and yeah, Terrion works through his back, but also, that could have been a no call. So I don't want to hear it. Like, at the end of the day, me and Miko, like, and I think as you get older as fans, unless you're guys like Peter or that Zachary guy, that writer for the Packers that JJ Watt ratioed, because he's like, how do you want Kirby Joseph to tackle this 250-pound tight end? You want him to go high because he hit him right on the thigh. JJ Watt broke that down perfectly, and I was like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's just the stuff. I don't care, man. The Packers are just kind of, they don't matter right now, to be honest. Like, they
really don't now. I was gonna say, they really don't now, right? You're out of the divisional race, and now your focus should be on trying to get to the playoffs, right? If you really think you're that much better than the Lions, you really think that you got robbed, prove it by getting further in the playoffs.
Yep. Come on, then. Yeah, exactly. I love that you made that point earlier too, man. Like, and Aaron Glenn, God, he's going to have his pick of the litter. But Josh Jacobs and the Packers have been running the ball well. Like, that's what's been carrying them this season. And Packers fans, if you guys watch this, you know I'm right. And I like Jordan Love. He has some wow plays on Sunday, like particularly that one where he evaded Jack Campbell as a free runner, reset his feet, and threw a dart. That was impressive. Like, I sat back down in my seat and I'm like, dang, man, this guy is cold sometimes. So respect there, because Jordan Love is one of them dudes, I will say. But Josh Jacobs, 18 carries for 66 yards. Yeah, he had 3 tugs, but they were all down in the red zone. Like, Lions did a good job of keeping that pretty much hemmed up. Jaden Reed was out there doing cardio. Amik had him hemmed up. Like, then JMO and Amik were talking crap to him and on Instagram. That was hilarious. Just a good game, man. Like, and then the Lions spread it out so well. Like, the receivers, like, everyone got work. It was great to see Tim Patrick get in the end zone 2 times. He was lit. You could tell. But yeah, man, so such a fun game to be at, bro. Was it? I want to watch it on TV.
It was I was gonna say, it was such a suspenseful game to watch in person. Like, I went with a couple people from, like, my life group at church. Like, we went right after group, went to, like, a local place, watched the game, and it was just like, yeah, like, you're on pins and needles. Like, it had everything that you wanted in terms of, like, probably by far the most exciting Thursday night football game that will probably be on all season.
I think so.
But I love what you brought up about Josh Jacobs, right? Like, if you, again, going back to Packers fans like taking accountability and putting the onus on your own team, the Green Bay Packers ran for 80 yards, Morgan, in the first half. They were averaging 5.7 yards per carry. They ended the game with 99 yards.
Bottled
Whose
up.
fault is that?
Yep.
With no Aleem, no DJ Reader, no Levi Onwuzurike, no Josh Pascal.
Yep. You had Pat
Your
O'Connor out there putting in work.
Your team failed to do the one thing that they were doing well in the first half. Could not sustain it.
Yeah, and they were getting whipped in there, to be honest with you. Like the Packers interior a lot of the time, especially when Aleem was in there. When Aleem went out, I was like, golly, man. But I want to talk about Jack a little more, bro, because it really seems like Jack is being, I love it in a good way. Like he's got some sauce to him. Like, was it Meek who like blew somebody up, like picked him up and dumped him, and then Jack went over and flexed over him? I think it was Tucker Kraft.
That wasn't a Meek. That was Carlson.
It was Carlton. Yeah, it was like there. Yeah, Jack ran over and like flexed over him, and was like, you could tell barking at him, and I was like, "Is this Jack Campbell?" Because like Jack Campbell, man, seemed
I've been saying it since day one. From the minute we saw Jack in a press conference, I was like, "Bro, he's gonna be choir boy in front of the media. He's gonna be a psychopath on the field. Like you can just tell he's got dual personalities when it comes down to playing football."
I love it, man. And you can tell like Kirby and BB and like these, like, because they'll yap like at you, like they don't like Meek is that's a fiery. I want him to stay. Like Brad Holmes, if you ever watch, please, man, get a Meek here for 2-3 more years, because that's he can play outside. He can like play damn good for you in the nickel. He's a great tackler. Like you can tell the dudes like him. Like I like him.
Isn't a Meek on a 2-year deal? I want to say.
That's a good point.
I feel like Meek has multiple years. Carlton is the one that I'm like, getting Carlton to stay for another 2 or 3. Because Carlton has done everything well, in my opinion. He covers well. He tackles well. If we have to deal with a couple injuries here and there, like I'm willing to do it just because when he is on the field, bro is a force. So he's the guy that I look at where I'm just like, that's the guy that you got to figure out how to lock him up long term, because he's another leader that you need in that secondary, and he does it with his play.
Yeah, and like that punch out he had when against Watson, because I saw that happen, because we looked right down that sideline and he jumped up and that ball was loose and you could see Carlton punch at it. Also, good call. Amika's under contract for next year, so beautiful. That's a great thing.
Carlton is the one that you got to get. Like in my opinion, if you can figure out a way of keeping him here, especially if you can make, again, we still have the rest of the season, but if you make a deep playoff run, if you get to the Super Bowl, like Carlton Davis is going to be a key reason why, because of what he's able to bring, not just in covering, but it has been like, for me personally, I've loved how he's defended the run as a corner.
He's got a mean streak. You can tell. Tyler Dunn, he writes that Substack Go Long TD, if you guys have ever read, and he wrote something in there and it always sticks with me about where Carlton was from in Miami and like, somewhere in Dade County. And he said he bows to no one. And I'm like, he plays like he's got an XXL chip on his shoulder. And I like, you need that as a nickel. You either have to be kind of zany and kind of crazy like Terrion, or you need to be like, just have that giant chip on your shoulder like Carlton or a Meek, those kind of guys, in my opinion. Like that's the,
and I
want to
love
see Ennis too. I'm excited to see more of Ennis Rakestraw.
And that would probably be the only reason why they wouldn't bring someone like Carlton back at this point, is because you have someone like Ennis in the wings that, is young and developing, and he has a mean streak to him, like in himself, when it comes down to being a very physical outside corner. But like I said, that's what makes, I think, this defense so unique in terms of what Aaron Glenn has been able to put together. You don't have your entire defensive line. Fine. I'm going to put more onus on my linebackers, and I'm going to put more onus on my secondary, because I know they can handle it. And they do. They go out there and they handle business. Again, keeping the Green Bay Packers under 200 yards passing, keeping them under 100 yards rushing. Like, that shouldn't happen. And Morgan, it's getting to the point where it's not just happenstance, right? Like we can't just keep asking the question, because a lot of people in the media are asking, okay, well, how long can the Lions sustain this? For as long as they want to.
Yeah.
That's the answer, for however long they want to, because whatever the formula is, and I think the formula has always been the same, and I feel like it's very simple. Do your job. Aaron Glenn has asked very little of his defensive players. You have an assignment, execute that assignment and the person behind you will execute theirs, so you will never have to cover for them. If you do that for 60 minutes or for 4 quarters or however long a full game is, like, we will come out on top.
Yeah, and Aaron Glenn, like, so much credit goes to Aaron Glenn because he more or less simplified things. Like Dan Campbell had some quotes, so we just wanted to trim it back to where those guys could play fast and where they could just cut it loose. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. And so with that, any burden we can take off you guys where you can just cut it loose. So basically they simplified things so you could get guys like Quan Alexander, Jamal Adams, and people like that up to speed in a matter of days. Because you had to. You were out there. Like, that's the impressive thing. You cut that tape on end of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter. It's going to be a lot of like, we follow this team. We're both fans of this team, and then we do it for a job too with Pride of Detroit. And I was looking, I was like, wait, 66. And I was like, okay, Miles Adams. And then I was like, oh, that's Jonah, the kid from
Williams.
Thank you. That's Jonah Williams. Like, I was like having to do mental gymnastics as I'm there live watching the game, because it's to do that because the Packers have been playing well, and they played well against the Lions. Like, they punched just about as hard as they could punch, and it just wasn't enough. So,
No.
Sorry, Green Bay.
And it's not enough because of, like we said, we have a defensive coordinator that knows how to get the best out of his defensive players. You have an offensive coordinator that literally will keep you guessing from beginning to end. But at the head of the spear, Morgan, you have a head coach that has so much belief in his guys. And I'm not gonna lie, it bothered me to turn on like national media on Friday and to hear people questioning whether this man is like irresponsible or not, or is like not thinking rationally, or if it's just like controlled chaos. Like, I can't believe, 3-4 years into his tenure, we're still having this conversation. Dan Campbell knows what he's doing. Just because you may not agree with it, just because you don't think it's the way that like a coach should, go through the flow of a game, doesn't mean it's wrong, because he's been right more often than he's been wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, I don't know why. I just kind of let the national people, if they want to have these silly things, and they go back to the San Francisco game and they're like, the Lions could have won that game if Dan Campbell wasn't so aggressive. No, man, that's just not, like, we're on year 4 of this. And since the middle of 2022, like Halloween of 2022, it's been winning. And the vast majority, like, one game I can pin on him during his entire coaching tenure. And it was in 2022, early in the season, where he elected to kick. We talked about it on this channel before. I won't rehash it for y'all. And that was the one where he like got emotional at the podium because the team did do enough to win, and they kind of the loss was on him, and he hated that. You could tell. And I was like, I think I'd already had a lot of faith in Dan Campbell, but like moments like that was like, okay, like, we really got something here in this man. So yeah, when these national people talk about this, like, he's an analytics guy, so the Lions very much adhere to like the numbers and the statistics, but then he's also a former coach, former player, former player, and he's always going to apply the context to the game. So if I'm warging, shout out to Game of Thrones, into Dan Campbell's brain, I'm sure he's thinking, okay, we've done okay with this patchwork defense, but we're playing our third game in 12 days. And if we do kick this field goal and the Packers get the ball back with 38, 37 seconds like that, something to go, and they don't have any timeouts, but they've been moving the ball, they've been chunking it. Jordan Love was scrambling. And like you said, Miko, before we jumped on, it takes one, crappy DPI call against Terrion or someone like that to put the ball in field goal position. And then you're playing extra football in your third game in 12 days. And that's, I'm sure, all went into Dan Campbell's crazy, brilliant, caffeinated mind. And then he's like, you know what, let's just go ahead and run this. And that way we can not have to chance it. And I'm fine with it, man, because he trusted, and Ben Johnson probably looked at him and was like, hey, like, I got something for this, like, pretty foolproof. Nothing's completely foolproof, but that's just how it goes. What do you think?
No, I agree. Like, I think, again, it's so easy to do this revisionist history as fans, as analysts, whatever the case may be. It's so easy to look back at plays and be like, oh, if you had done this, then this happens.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works, right? Like, just because X happens doesn't mean that every domino after that decision plays out the same way. That Niners game, yes, Dan could have kicked a field goal. It would have changed the complexity of the game, but that does not guarantee a win. There are still events that need to play out. The same thing is true in this situation. Could Dan have decided to kick that field goal then? Yes, but you open yourself up to unnecessary possibilities, right? Like you said, you run the risk of, yes, it's 38 seconds. We've seen teams move down the field. I
Easy.
remember a quarterback in this that used to quarterback here that would like smile from ear to ear if you gave him that much time.
Yes.
And then, yes, in a sport where you have a spot file, why risk it? Right? You have a corner that's out there. Again, Terrion's going to get better, but he's been the subject of some horrible DPI calls. The last thing you need is a 68-yard spot penalty to give Green Bay the opportunity to not just tie the game, but win it. Like, you remove all shadow of doubt. And then, okay, fine, let's live in this fantasy world, because obviously it already played out, but let's live in a fantasy world where it's like, well, what if they don't get that fourth down? You don't think that Dan Campbell still has enough faith in his defense at that point to still get a stop? You don't think that Dan Campbell has enough faith in his team to go into overtime and still be like, hey, we're going to end it? Because Morgan, I'm willing to bet any amount of money that if they had went to overtime, Dan would have been like, if we get the ball, we're winning.
100%. The offense had been functioning like that all day. So he's shown himself, man. Just trust him at this point. Like if you're not a Lions fan and you're watching this just as like a neutral, just hear us, man. Like we cover this team. We've been watching them like for a long time, watching football for a long time. And so is Miko and everyone. It's works, man. The Niners game, everyone was mad at the result. You're not mad at the process, because the process has been fruitful so many times for us as Lions fans, and for for Dan Campbell, since he took over. You're just mad at the result, because right there, boom, you get 7 yards, even though Jared falls. Shout out Jared Goff for getting that off still, man. I didn't even see.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I didn't even see it live. I didn't look. I put my head down. And
no, man, shout out JG, shout out David Montgomery for being able to, again, not panic in that situation. Yeah. Like, there's still so much trust. And I think Cam Newton said it best on First Take. Like, as a player and as a fan, he pointed out players and fans, you appreciate consistency. You appreciate knowing what your coach is going to do. Because I'll be honest, every fourth down they went for, Morgan, I was like, they're going for it.
So did I.
Every time it got to those fourth downs, I was like, they're going for this. And it made sense based off of the flow of the game, based off of just like, even the one they didn't get. I'm not mad about, and we'll break down that play. I'm not even mad about the call. It was a good call. Plays have to be executed.
Yep.
Like, point blank, period.
It's funny that you said that too, because I'm always thinking it too, just because we've been watching Dan long enough now. And now, like at home games, I'll look to my right, to my boy who also coached and everything, like too, and just is really in tune with the game. And he doesn't even say anything. He just looks at me and he's like,
yeah.
I'm like, no. And Sweta hates it, bro. So Sweta sits right, and she'd rather be safe. She's a little bit more conservative as a fan. And she's like, no, don't say it.
Man, my boy Ryan that was in our group that was like with us on Thursday was like sweating. And I was like, bro, it's going to be all right.
Yeah,
like
they're going to do it.
Yeah. It's like, it's going to happen. You can't
just buckle up.
At the end of the day, Dan Campbell is a coach that does not coach to lose. He coaches to win. And it looks scary, right? And I would say, like you said earlier, Morgan, at some point in time, we have to get to the point, as whether you're a fan of the Lions or you're someone that's just observing, you have to get to a point of understanding that fourth down calls are not to be judged based off of like whether they should or shouldn't have done it. It should be judged on pass fail. Right? You'll be happy if it succeeds. You'll be mad if it fails. That's fine. That's just the nature of the game. But you can't be mad at the decision based on how your team is built, based on where your team is trying to get. If you have a team that's contending for a Super Bowl, that's pushing to get to a Super Bowl, you should never be upset with a fourth down call. That's the type of aggressiveness that you should want to see from your team, because that is what they are striving for. They are striving to get to a Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl. So I can at least say, as I'm sure for us as Lions fans, yeah, the first couple of years where you're like, oh, this is different. Like that we're going to, like this is, but you adapt and you understand like, no, this is what it means to actually want to win, right? This isn't being reckless. This isn't not considering analytics or whatever. And this is coming from people that are analytical people. I do analytics as a job, but like, I still understand the course of and flow of a game. So shout out to Dan. Shout out for the way that he's continuing to lead this team. They deserve this 10-day break because they got a big one against Buffalo, and that's going to be another opportunity to make a statement. And we'll see if the Lions can do that next week.
Yeah, I'm excited for that prep, man. And yeah, like if y'all, just you're used to it by now. And like, I get that it's scary, but you think about what Brad Holmes said. I don't know when he said it, but the quote about we don't draft scared, we don't play scared. And then Dan Campbell's from that part of Texas where they literally wrestle bulls to the ground, man, and like do all the, he's gonna do. And there's a quote out there too somewhere where he said when he was an assistant coach and he would see how uncomfortable and like scared the other sideline would get when Sean Payton would go for it and like quote unquote aggressive situations. And he was like, there's something there, because he'd rather be the aggressor. Even if it bites him here and there, just think of all the games that the Lions have come away with a win because of Dan Campbell going for the throat and not playing to lose. And how many coaches in Lions past, like Jim Caldwell, Patricia, played not to lose. And then we ended up giving up a fourth quarter lead, time and time again. So I'd much rather be on this course of things because the proof is in the pudding, as they say,
Absolutely. So pretty much, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. We really hope you enjoyed it. Lions fans, continue to enjoy this win as they continue to march towards getting that #1 seed in the NFC. Packers fans, in the words of Steve Smith, ice up. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
ice up, son.
It's still not a terrible year. You guys still have a winning record. Like, just, you just didn't beat the Lions again this year. And
yep.
We look forward to seeing you guys next year. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about competition. It's all about the NFC North continuing to be the most competitive division in football right now. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys are looking for more additional Lions content, all you have to do is check out prideofdetroit.com. Continue to subscribe to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel if you're looking for more Lions content. Hit that notification bell. And yeah, we will see you guys in the next video.